Well, here in our first episode of the podcast, Yurta Azul, Jihad Azul, Peace at Home, Peace in the World, Paz en Casa, Paz en el Mundo. Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the founder of the Republic of Turkish, said, "We work for peace at home, peace in the world." Atatürk had a higher consciousness of unity, of a nation, of an unified humanity. He also said, we must consider humanity as a single body and each nation has an organ of it. Today, on May 19, 2022, we share to the world this first podcast. Atatürk, with his slogan of peace, through the appropriate and profound use of language when said, peace at home, peace in the world, Yurta Azul, Jihad Azul, Paz en Casa, Paz en el Mundo, laid the foundation for a new, unified, and universal consciousness, not only for the Turkey of Atatürk, but for the entire world and universe, for each and every single civilization to will come. According to our perspectives, with this slogan of peace, Atatürk elevate all the humans on this planet to the rank of being a missionaries of peace. And we ask to you, are you willing to do it? Are you willing to be a missionary of peace? Are you willing to establish the peace at home, at your country, peace in the world, in the universe? Just think about it very deeply. In this podcast, we will be talking about the principle of peace, universality, unified human consciousness, and reforms that Atatürk established during his life, with a special emphasis on language in general and the Turkish language specifically. So, my name is Deborah Elias, and here with me is Elif Ergas. I'm studying comparative literature at the University of Puerto Rico, a Bachelor of Arts with specialization in comparative literature. Now I'm dedicated to consultancy, mindset, and I'm a Proctor Gallagher Institute certified consultant. So I'm gonna ask Elif to present herself. So Elif, how are you?
Thank you, Deborah. It's really a great pleasure and great honor to be with you in this podcast. Yurtta Sulh, Cihanda Sulh, Peace at Home, Peace in the World, and Paz en Casa, Paz en el Mundo. It's really an honor to talk about this. My name is Elif Ergöz, and I thank you for inviting me, and thank you for our co-work. It's really something very precious for me. So I am a futuristic strategy coach, writer. I have written a book. It's about spiritual. It's an astro novel, actually. It's about astrology, but in a novel. I am an MBA graduate, Master of Business Administration, Boğaziçi University, Bosphorus University. It's translated to English. So thank you for inviting me here. It's great.
Thank you for being here. I want to ask you a question, Elif,
Sure.
before introducing the main subject of this podcast. I want
Sure.
you to talk about how important is this day, May 19th. And also, please let us know about the historical context in which Atatürk pronounced his declaration of peace, of Yurta Sul, Jihanda Sul.
Yes, with pleasure. Actually, today is the 19th of May. So it is a great day, actually, where Atatürk landed on Samsun. It's a province at the coast of the uh, northern, the Black Sea region. So the day he landed was 19th of May, 1919. So it's a if someone knows about numerology, it's also a great, meaningful day in terms of that. But for the perspective of the historical context, it's the beginning of the Turkish War of Independence, because um, the land was occupied. It was trying to recover from the ashes of the Ottoman Empire that collapsed and create a new republic, actually, the Turkish Republic, later on. So today is the day of commemoration of Atatürk. It's called Youth and Sports Day. So it's the that's how this day is called Commemoration of Atatürk Youth and Sports Day. And it was decided to have this name uh, on the May 19th, 1936. So it was announced as a day of celebration and remembrance. Youth is very important for Atatürk because it's going to be the future of the land, and he has a addressing to youth, which should be read. I advise all of you to read the addressing to youth from Atatürk. It was 1927 when he did this. And coming to your next question, when the Yurtta Sulh Cihanda Sulh was pronounced for the first time, it was April 20th, 1931. It means peace at home, peace in the nation, and peace in the world, peace in the universe from a spiritual perspective, because Atatürk was not a normal earthly being. He had many universal statements. So this is not about only for Turkey, this is about the whole world. But let's say from the historical perspective, it helps us to understand more. It's 1930s. It's before the Second World War, and Atatürk saw it coming. Saw the world, getting into a war, and he had to say something to at least prevent it, to make it less vulnerable for all the nations. So if, for instance, you have peace in Turkey only and you have all world around the nation, you don't have actually peace. You don't have peace until all nations, all human beings are in peace. So even one problematic nation can harm this state of peace. So it means if the whole world, whole universe should be at peace. Actually, according to the Hermetic laws, what is up there at the macro level exists at the micro level in the world we are living on. So that means in the universe there is also a war which needs to be stopped, and actually everyone who is born in the onto the earth is a missionary of peace. Some of them know it, some of them are not aware of it, so they have to be awakened. One other thing which is very important for the statement of Yurtta Sulh Cihanda Sulh, because it was put in the Turkish constitution 1961 and 1982 it's a revised constitution of Republic of Turkey then. So it was like a law. Okay, if you put something in the constitution, it's a law, legal. That means this statement carries essence of the divine justice. Actually, this is very important because divine justice exists if there is a high consciousness and high conscience. I mean, if you feel the other's pain, if you think and what they think. So if we're going to elaborate more on that, being one unified humanity. So this is what this statement actually means. So I'm so thankful you have asked this question, because the essence is so important, Deborah.
So, Jihanda Sul, Yurta Sul, peace at home, peace in the world, paz en casa, paz en el mundo. It is in the Turkish constitution.
Uh, it was put there in 1961, and the Turkish
Amazing.
constitution was revised. So, unfortunately, the current constitution needs to be revised again. So, I don't want to talk about it. So, it's getting into
Okay.
politics. So, let me not say it. But once you put it, it's legalized, right? It's law. Even if it doesn't exist here now, it was there once upon a time, and we have to grab it again and make it a living statement again, okay, a living statement of peace. This is very important. So that's why perhaps we are also talking about it right now.
Yes, and you said something very, very important, that every human here have that mission of peace.
Right.
So we want to activate that conscience of everyone who is listening to us.
Yes.
Being a peacemaker,
Yes.
really in their thoughts and feelings and actions.
Right. So, how we are going to do it? I mean, do you have anything about this? And is today also we want to talk about language, and you are an expert on this. And how? What would you like to say about this? I mean,
Well, yes, it's very important because language for me it's the foundation of civilization. And it's very, very important because it's related also to Atatürk
right.
and why language and how important is language. And peace is a world, is a word, and is a world. We create worlds with word. So we could say that language is to civilization as the sun is to life.
Yes.
This is a very important statement. Language is the center of the civilized life. And also, the use of languages reflect the level of consciousness of a person and of a society. So you're going to
Mm-hmm.
talk about us briefly about that even more. So the human being that we know today arise or has created itself thanks to the most, in the words of this evolutionary biologist Mark Pagel. He said, powerful, dangerous, and subversive device that we know, the language. So human being, I'm gonna repeat, that we know today arise or create itself because of the language. So, for Pagel, for example, language is a social technology that opened the sphere of cooperation for
Yeah.
humans to take advantage of. It is the most important feature that has evolved, language. So, he also said that language is the voice of our genes. And for the, I'm gonna, just sharing some scientific thoughts and author about language. Here, for example, is Steven Pinker, is a linguistic. He said that linguistics is a window to understand the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding the brain, that great archive and bank of knowledge and information that we could say invaluable instrument of creation and the most powerful technology, is actually everything. So for Pinker, language is the center, and from the focal point extends the thoughts, relation, social relation,
Right.
biology, and evolution. I'm gonna quote Pinker. He said, "Language is the most distinctively talented. Language is a window to human nature, and most significantly, the vast expressive power of language is one of the wonders of the natural world." One of the wonder of the natural world. So it's amazing what language is about. In the words of David Peterson, our entire civilization is based on language, and it is humanity's greatest invention. He said, "Language is not merely a tool." I'm quoting David Peterson. "Language is not merely a tool; it is also our legacy. It's our way of conveying what it means to be human. It is not only a tool, it is the way to transmit what it means to be human." So, in order to create peace at home, peace in the world, paz en casa, paz en el mundo, yurta sul, jihanda sul, we must to study the connection of language with every aspect of our civilization. Even with emotions, health has to do with language. I remember this neuroscientific and psychologist Lisa Feldman. She suggests in her book How Emotions Are Made: The Secret Life of the Brain, that learning new words of a foreign language is associated with having an emotional control on how our brain construct or create our emotions. She said that emotions are guesses that our brains builds in the moment with billions of neurons working at the same time. and we have more control over those guesses than we realize. So this is huge where he we are talking here. um Also, there is a independent researcher, Mehmet Kurtaya, in his book Some Language Theory Proven, The Birth of Languages and Civilizations. He said, language and civilizations make a whole together, hence all aspects of civilization must be considered together with languages. There's also a cognitive scientific, Lera Boroditsky, said that has investigated how the language we speak modifies our way of thinking. So that's why it's so important for us talking about language, because that modifies our way of thinking. So through language, there are structural
Yeah.
differences in our brains. And she argues that languages can have great effects on the perception of time and space, and in how the color spectrum is perceived, in the grammatical gender, and the description of the events that happen to us, among many other differential effects. Depending on which language any person speak, they will pay attention to different things depending on the needs of the language. This is very important. I'm going to repeat these sentences. Depending on which language any person speak, they will pay attention to different things depending on the needs of the language. So the language guides our reasoning of the different events. So I think I made my point very clear
Very
here
nice.
about yes, about the intrinsic and highly importance of language. And Mustafa Kemal Atatürk knows about it. He also studied for 5 years as a linguistic and make amazing research about the origins of
Origins, yes.
Turkish, yes, language that extends to the Sumerian civilization.
Right.
So he wrote books about it and made the most important and for me amazing and extraordinary reforms, the Turkish language reform. And there is a linguistic, Yuri Cheka. He's Russian linguistic. He said in this book that there's an interview to him. The book was wrote by Ozer Olsan Kaya, Atatürk's Legacy Views by World Famous Intellectuals. It's an amazing book, and you will know more about the amazing things that Atatürk did, not just for Turkey,
Yes,
but for the world, for the
for
humanity.
the
He had
humanity.
a huge impact for the humanity, and I think that this is the moment to we acknowledge this. So, in the words of the linguistic Yuri Sheka, Turkish language reform was a scientific experimentation because the development of Turkish was not the outcome of a spontaneous process. I'm quoting him. It was due to a scientific experiment and experimentation in the fields of linguistics, unique in human history. At the beginning of this podcast, we said that Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, with his slogan of peace, Yurta Sul, Yuhanda Sul, peace at home, peace in the world, laid the foundation of a new unified human consciousness. So, what do we mean by that? Well, I will express in with simplicity as I understood in this moment. For me, a unified consciousness is like giving a hug.
Yes, that's
It's
right.
another one.
That's
So
right.
you're embracing someone. It is being in the present moment, being a unity where actually borders disappear, where there is no space for discrimination of any kind, where there is no room to think in negativity terms. We're giving from the essence and receiving from the essence instantly, manifest in the same moment. So it is where there is no any you or I, simply it's we,
We,
no us.
us.
So it's very important because we are dealing here with different level of vibration, of consciousness, of yes, of vibration. So there is no difference between you and me. So I think that Ataturk acknowledged that, even with that quote and with that foundation that they laid in this new unified human consciousness. So how language can help us to establish and embrace, an unified consciousness? That's a question that I make to we make to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
The linguistic Yuri Sheka, I'm going to quote him again. He said, "A language does not merely consist of a series of signs and symbols. It does have a social energy. The process of speech is first of all an exchange of energy. We wrongly think that language carries only information in its whereas through the use of language we influence one another very deeply. Each word has an energy in it. In order to be able to assess the real significance of language, this energy aspect of it should be able to taken into consideration. The social and experimental aspect of the Turkish language reform are of great importance. Its significance will, I believe, better appreciate in the coming decades." We
Yes.
close the quote here. So this aspect of energy aspect of the language, and especially of the Turkish language, we said before, has the neuroscientific said that language shapes the way we think,
Yes.
which shapes the brains and shapes, of course, the way we think. So this energy aspect of the Turkish language is very, very, very important. So I want you to, to open, I can say it in that term, for us, this energy aspect of language, and the specific implication in the Turkish language reform and after the reform.
Yeah.
Also, I want to know, why was language and Turkish language a vital topic for Atatürk's, where his researches derived. No, we know
Right.
that Atatürk wrote a lot of books about different topics, but one of the most relegate or forgotten is the Güneş Dil Teorisi, the
Yes.
sun language theory, La Teoría del Lenguaje Solar. I want you to brought this matter to light. And I think that that is the moment to just talk about this Güneş Dil Teorisi.
Yeah, I will do it with pleasure. Actually, it's very important, and it's also very important what you have said, because nobody thinks about the language like this. We just take it for granted. We just speak about it, but we have to think deeper than that. Very deep, indeed, actually. And Atatürk saw this. He made a very difficult revolution. We say it's done on July 12th, 1932. So uh, it's a very difficult period. Imagine you don't have all the means, you have a very limited resource, you don't have internet. You have to teach a nation a different language, and the letters carry a frequency. The letters in the Ottoman Empire were belonging to the East, and the Latin alphabet that Atatürk has created belongs to the Western world. So it's a transition at the same time from East to West. But let's come to the point of the Sun language theory. It's very important, I think, and we should perhaps do more broadcasts on this with different people who are expert on this. You know what? There is not much material on the issue of sun language theory, and really, I'd like to start calling researchers and students to carry out more studies in this field. So, actually, the essence of the sun language theory states that there is a Proto-Turkic language, which is the root of many languages. So let me say again, that means a Proto-Turkic language means it's not a language, but it is a pre-language. Okay, it's some consonants and some some short sounds that build the root of a language. So Atatürk has figured out of his research, very profound research he has completed. He said that this Proto-Turkic language is the root of many other languages while he was preparing this linguistic revolution. And a lot of words we know now in other languages actually really have Turkish roots if you look closer. Um, Given the fact that the Turks migrated from the east to west, they have carried out their language and made the words merge with the local language they have migrated to the lands, the new lands they were in. And what is the reason why such a search for a root language? I mean, what are we gaining out of this? Is that a proto language that serves as the basis of other languages. Actually, I read a book about this, and I was amazed. The book of, I have to quote this, of Kaan and İlknur Aslanoğlu. They've written a book about the Sun language theory, and they state the reason of search for a root language, a proto language. The reason is simply deciphering of mankind, decoding of the human mind. Actually, this is what they say, because the language defines the human. And their starting point was studying similar words in English and Turkish. For one example is, the English word able. I'm able, you're able, ability. The Turkish is bil, to know. Okay, it's the same meaning and same sounds, and people have not looked into it deeper. I mean, they have made a great study on this, and some words not used in Turkish language anymore, but stayed in English and German. They have also Turkish root. In the Proto-Turkic language, there was a root, and it migrated into German, in English, for instance, but it's not used in Turkish anymore. For instance, the word north, the direction, it comes from Turks. It is Nordic Turks. In the book, there are much details. I mean, how the sounds merge with each other. So I'm not going to get into the detail. The book is unfortunately in Turkish. I hope one day we can read the translation. And according to many sources, it is stated that the humanity will be speaking one single language on a day in the future. I hope soon enough. And according to one of the books I read, this language is called the Izolan or atomic language. Some of our friends who are listening to us will recognize this name. Perhaps speaking won't be necessary for this language. I mean, we will not making sounds, and it would be enabled through kind of a telepathic skill. And this is, for instance, how the act of channeling is done. Downloading knowledge onto the earth through beings who can access other dimensions. This is a spiritual window. And as we know,
Mm.
Turk was quite spiritual, right? So it's worth taking a look into the spiritual world here. Actually, this is a process of transition from Proto-Turkic language into the Turkic languages and also other languages. And then one day we will stop using the language we are speaking and will move to another stage. And this other stage, a future stage of language, is called the post-language stage. So it's named an Izolan language. And this process really might be the key to human evolution. I think it's really important,
Amazing.
right? Because, as you know, the language defines the human advancement. As you say, it's a social energy. It's more than an energy. It's a consciousness, actually. You may speak with more words, enrich the statements with a deeper meaning, and thereby catch higher segments on the chains of thoughts. Yes, we have chains of thoughts, and I will come to that. And when an Isolan language enters the scene of humanity, you don't use thoughts anymore. You don't need to generate thoughts because then your consciousness will speak. Or you'll simply download and transmit through the coordinates of consciousness. You don't need thoughts anymore. You are one brain, one body, as you said.
Hmm.
And we should keep in mind that language creates a magnetic field. Be it Spanish, be it Turkish, be it another language, German, it creates a magnetic field. And the nature of the language creates different magnetic fields. If you have a richer language, you create a higher magnetic field. And the magnetic field created by the Turkish language is very special, according to some, spiritual books, esoteric books, and they state that Turkey is a missionary country in human evolution. Turkish language is explained as a computer language, as you might know, in a very important book, a spiritual book, and that is it carries a higher frequency.
Hmm.
Very nice, actually. But coming to more earthly books, let's say, not very high up spiritual, I want to mention some other quotes. Like another very interesting book is written by Burak Özdemir about the sun language. The Turkish of sun language is Güneş dili. Güneş means sun, dil means language. And really, I appreciate his writing style and creativity. He breaks the words in his book and remerges them to generate a different meaning from already existing words. It's very creative. Rewording, actually, playing with the words. But he's opening a window on the words. We see different meanings popping up, and it's really amazing. For instance, the Turkish of the sun language theory is Güneş dil kuramı. Güneş means sun, as I said. Gün means day, illumination, and eş means equal, equivalent.
Hmm.
Dil means language, as I said. And Burak Özdemir breaks the word güneş as güne eş. That means a language that is equal to illumination, that is equal to equivalent to sun. The sun radiates to everyone. It doesn't discriminate. Uh, I mean, it doesn't say I have a headache, I will not rise today. I mean, it's doing a routine all the time and equal. So this is very important. So language of illumination, I think the light language, it sounds similar to the atomic language, isn't it, Deborah? I mean,
Hmm.
that's what I really appreciate here. And as you get more illuminated, you get a higher level of human evolution, and more advanced language creates a stronger magnetic field with higher codes of consciousness. And this brings really a right for the humanity to exist at higher dimensions. And the life cycle, or let's say the learning curve, the evolution curve of a language, is the life cycle of the human evolution. And according to my s- thesis theory, there are three phases. At phase one, you have collective thought chains, and we call it the ocean of thoughts. And the thoughts are generated through language. Okay, I speak something, I talk about love. It is talking about love is like a thought, a concept, and it creates me to access love or to show love. So operationalizing the concept of love, let's say. So I'm getting into the ocean of thoughts when I do it, and I catch thought chain regarding love, and I add a chain to it. All the thoughts we are thinking are already thought, and they are swimming in an ocean of thoughts. We're just catching and updating, revising this thought of change. So this is about language. Phase one it was. Phase two is about consciousness. We're not there with the thoughts anymore, but we have collective codes of consciousness, And we have this time an ocean of consciousness, and the consciousness is generated through this atomic isolant language. What is the difference between consciousness and thoughts? My students were asking me. Actually, it's very simple. For instance, if you driving a car, you just learned how to drive a car. You think about, okay, now it's the first gear, now it's the second gear. I have to adjust the mirror. You think about it. But if you have enough experience in driving a car, you don't think about it anymore. You just do it automatically. So consciousness is automated, you know, things, codes of consciousness is there that they operate for you. That's why this Isolan language doesn't require sound anymore, because it's not a communication. It's not me and you, as I said, it's we. So you just simply download the files from each other. Even not downloading, it's there. You don't have to do anything speaking. And phase three is the collective human power. Actually, this is where the consciousness will bring us. This is a power dimension. This is a new life for the humanity, a future life. And it's created as a product of these operating codes of consciousness. It's a shaping of a different kind of matter out of the antimatter, because antimatter is generated by thoughts, and it's a new dimension of power for a different kind of existence. Yes, it's so something like that. And uh, Actually, I discussed these three phases in the book I wrote.
Hmm.
It's a novel, but it includes some of the spiritual knowledge to share with the humanity, and I hope it's soon going to be translated into English one day. And the beings must successfully go through these three phases in order to survive in the higher dimensions. Uh, but I have to mention here a very important book, a book above everything. Is written by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, and it's dated 1935, and it provides really precious knowledge about the Sun language theory. It states, for instance, that the Sumerian language has Turkish origins as well, and you- maybe we can go into more detail in another broadcast about it, because it's really very complicated and very comprehensive. Our time won't be enough today to.
Yes,
Right?
definitely.
What do you think? Shall we make new broadcasts about it?
This is amazing what you brought to us. This is huge information that we are going to be developing during next podcast.
Yes, we should.
You know, I want to you to also to I want to give just information what you said about the origin, Turkish being the origin of the language. There is
Yes.
some scientific research
Mm-hmm.
directed by Remco Bolkaert, and he was mapping the origins and the expansion of the Indo-European language family.
Oh.
So they say that they support and suggest that the origin of the language family, that's Indo-European, it's English is part of this large Indo-European language family. It includes Celtic, Germanic, Italic, Balto-Slavic,
Yes.
and Indo-Iranian's language. Even the Spanish language also it's part of this. But well, the thing is, that they find that and support that the origin language family was indeed in Anatolia 7 to 10,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So this is huge.
This is really huge.
This is huge. So we're gonna be talking about this and this level that you open to us today. That's energy and consciousness that we create. The magnetic field that we create with thoughts and beyond thoughts, no,
Yes.
that's I think this is quite new for the people. that there is something beyond thought.
Yes, there's something, and we have to make people think about it. That's the purpose of this broadcast, really. You have done a great work so far with Yurtdasuk, Cihandasuk, and it's really bringing something into the light, right?
Hmm. I want you to share it a little bit, because this book, the Güneş Dil Teorisi Atatürk books, it's a like forbidden book in Turkish.
For,
Even I was looking for
forgotten. Yeah,
forgotten. Yeah, I was looking, and the thank you, the books of Atatürk's, the list of the books that he wrote,
yes,
and there is not Güneş Dil Teorisi in those books. I found this doing different research, but
right.
it's not like consider this book. What you think is about it?
It is actually written with the purpose that as a basement for the how to say the reform, because if you're going to make a reform or revolution, you need to have a basis for it. You have to have a reason why, right? And the reason why should be taking you into the future. So this is a language of the future, and you know what, it's a the language unifies the people. So I'm talking to you, I'm conveying my thoughts, you're responding. So it's a communication, it's a resonating thing, right? And we have to accelerate this communication, and we have to accelerate the understanding, the mutual understanding and acceptance of humanity. So all goes through the language, and then we have to go beyond the language. But first we have to do our work. We're not there yet beyond the language, and this is why I say the book of Atatürk is it's a genius book. I mean, it is a how do you say, it's so difficult to understand because it is written by a genius. You should study
Hmm.
this in order to understand. There are many reasons why he wrote the book. For instance, how do I say, there is a there are examples actually about hakikat, for instance, the hakikat in Turkish. He brings it back to the proto Turkic language. He gives the resonances where this word is coming from. So it is a very scientific book at the same time. He proves why he says something. Okay, that's why it's very important. For instance, hakikat is means reality, but it comes from hak. Hak is actually in the Turkish national anthem, we have a statement, for instance, we are worshipping Hak. It's maybe considered an equal meaning with Allah, the God. Uh, but if you look differently, it has something else too. So you have to elaborate on. I don't want to give all the details right now in the because it's too
Yes.
long. And it's also in the big spiritual book we are reading in the 43rd section of the book, Meaning of Hak. So he proves that it comes from Turkish language. Actually, Hak, Hakikat, we know it's Arabic, right? But
Hmm.
another proves it's not Arabic. It's coming from Turkish, and he proves it with resonance, the consonants and the Proto-Turkic, how to say, pieces of language, like ah, al, ak. For instance, there's a word in Turkish language. We call it soft G. Okay, it has
Hmm.
a G letter on a cap on top of it, a hat. Uh, but it doesn't exist in any other language. It is very important to have such languages because it gets into the consonants and it creates other vowels. And let me not get into scientific and technical details here, but you should read the book. That's why I'm calling the researchers to make research on
Hmm.
this language issue, right? I'm not a literature expert, so I shouldn't be doing it. So,
You're doing a great job.
thank you very much. So that's one example. Maybe we should
Yes,
keep other examples for the next broadcast.
yes, definitely. We would still open this knowledge, this
Yeah.
information that Ataturk established in 1936. No, he did this
1935 he wrote.
25.
That's
Yes,
where
right.
the book is printed. So that's the
Hmm.
forgotten book of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk.
You know, this evolutionary biologist that I mentioned before, Mark Pagel, he said that if there is one word, there should be
Language.
one language. And he talked about how different language create poverty. You know, in different regions, there is so many different languages create poverty.
Hmm.
But the thing I believe that this unique language should be the Turkish because of the characteristics. So we're going to be open that it's a language that have no gender,
Yes.
and it's very very neutral and very elegant, and it's amazing. This is an amazing language. So I think people is gonna fall in love with it when it's continue knowing about this language.
Thank you for saying that. Actually, it's very similar to Latin in terms of structure. And as you say, there is no gender, so there is no bias, right? In that. It's not complicated. It's a computer language. That means you can break the pieces, remerge, reword. It's like Lego, right? It's very pragmatic language at the same time.
Well, thank you very much. There is a lot of scientific, well, not a lot, but scientific study about this aspect of the computer language of the Turkish language. So we're going to
Yes.
continue like giving you this information and reflecting about this. Thank you very much, Elif. And
Thank you, Deborah, for everything. Really a pleasure being here with
me
you.
too. We will continue, and we end with our special slogan: Yurta Sul, Jihanda Sul, peace at home, peace in the world, paz en casa, paz en el mundo. We work for peace and home, peace in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you.